We're all tuned into media all the time, and one of the really bad things about being tuned into media all the time is that you can get a lot of bad advice, and that also applies to the financial world. And having people tell you, who have some authority in your mind and in our minds, things that really shouldn't be paid attention to. What's going on, guys? This is Wrestling with Finance, the YouTube channel for people who have struggled with finance in the past and look to do better with it in the future. We're going to talk today about some of these influences, how you can avoid them, how you can pick them out, and why you really shouldn't be listening to certain people when they talk about money. But before we get into that, I want to remind you guys that you can always do your own research on economics, finances, personal finance, everything else. I have some links down in the description box there for you if you want to get some free points from the Chase Sapphire Preserve, the Reserve card. You can do that with the link down in the description box below. You can also get some free stocks from WBAL or Robinhood with the links down in the description box below. And you may even get yourself some free crypto by using the links for Coinbase. That's right, down in the description box below. I appreciate it very much. Check that out and see if there's anything down there for you. But now let's talk about some of the influences and why I find this to be kind of disturbing. By the way, I'm going to apologize today. My allergies are kicking up. It's springtime, and every year this time of year, my eyes puff up. So I'm wearing glasses today because otherwise I can't see. So we're going to be doing this video today with the glasses on. Hopefully there's not too much glare coming from the lights or the camera. But let's talk about this. A couple weeks ago when people started talking about inflation in earnest, and I was listening to my local radio station, WBAL. There's a show with a guy who goes by the moniker of C4, used to be a congressman, and Brian Nehman, and they do a drive time show on the radio where people call in, and they were talking about inflation, and they were talking about money and talking about things going up, and there was a lot of complaining and arguing, and there were people coming on and they were upset about stuff. But there was one guest on the show, I'll call in, that piqued my interest. This caller, actually, I think he texted in a message to them and said that him and his fiance were doing well because they were dollar cost averaging. They were managing their budget. They were reducing the amount of things that they were going to spend. They were trying to only spend within their means and not going to overspend and get themselves into trouble. Now, as you know, from anybody who listens to a YouTube finance channel, that is basically the stuff that we tell you guys to do to start out with in order to get your money together so you will no longer be wrestling with finance. Like how I just put the title of the channel in, never mind. Their response to this person's tweet or text or whatever it was that, well, that's nice for you, but most people can't do that. And I was listening to this going, that is probably the worst advice I could ever hear. I think one of them went on and were like, well, you know, we really can't do that because the United States is 70% a consumer economy. And if you do that, then the economy falls down. And once again, I was not surprised, but a little put off by hearing this, because my response to that would be, doesn't that kind of tell you maybe we've leaned too far towards a consumer economy, that in order for the economy to keep going, people have to go broke and go into debt in order for it to sustain itself? There seems to be something wrong with that. The other host, and this really piqued my interest, and he went on talking about how, you know, he had a vacation for his kids and he was going to have to spend so much more for the vacation for the kids, and they were going to take some big trip somewhere. And again, the point of what the caller or the texter was saying is that maybe this year you cut back on that stuff because you can't afford it. This is a mentality that goes on, and this is the kind of mentality that is one of the factors, but not the entire factor, behind the old saying that the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. And like I said, this is one of the reasons that happened. And one of the interesting things about this is it really comes down to interest rates. And if you're on the poor side of that spectrum I talked about before, interest rates will gobble you up. It will gobble up a lot of your money. If you have a lot of debt and you have high interest payments on that debt, then any extra money you have goes towards paying that interest. And that's how one of the reasons why the poorest get poorer, because as interest rates go up, and as it costs more money for them to use those credit cards to do whatever it is that you do, borrow money to buy a car, borrow money to buy a house, whatever it is, they're going to be gobbled up and they can never get ahead because they're behind so much. Where the flip side applies to the rich getting richer because they've managed that. They are not carrying massive amounts of debt, and interest is actually working in their favor because all of their assets are gaining in interest daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, to the point where they don't really have to worry that much about money. That's the point that you want to get to. That's the point that most of us want to get to. And you don't even have to be rich to do that. But again, one of the big blockers from the average person being able to do that is getting bad advice in our general media and our mainstream media consumption. And I want to get this across because I don't think it's an insidious thing. I don't think these people do it because they want you to be poor in the terms of these media personalities. But I think it happens because they themselves are not educated on personal finance. They themselves put themselves into debt, like the one host said, to take extravagant vacations that he really can't afford. The other one had a perspective that everybody, that's just the way we are as Americans in particular, is that we just consume, and we don't build anything anymore. And that is part of the reason why most Americans are going to be stuck in this cycle of endless debt, because that mentality is allowed to stand and nobody can challenge it. It's not even a real hard concept to understand. If you have a lot of debt and interest rates continue to compound on top of that debt, then you're going to be spending most of your time paying off a debt as opposed to being able to get yourself ahead and get yourself to a place of financial freedom. Again, not necessarily meaning rich, not necessarily meaning you need to be a millionaire to be financially free. You can make $70,000, $60,000, $40,000 a year, and as long as you're living within your means and your budget is good and you're happy with your life, then you're going to be a lot freer and a lot richer in truth than a lot of people who may be making 2 to 3 times the amount of money that you're making, and they have nothing to spend and they're in debt. And if they lose their job tomorrow, or something goes wrong, or there's a surgery or something like that, they're going to be wiped out or in hurting for quite some time. One of the big ways this happens is with something I'm sure you guys have heard of too, is called being house poor. There's a lot of people who buy houses that are really, really nice and really, really expensive, and they qualified for the loan, they qualified for the mortgage, but that eats up the majority of their monthly income. So they're spending all of their money on their house, and they have this really nice house, but they can't do much of anything else. And again, if something goes wrong, they're in a lot of trouble. One of the things that my channel and a lot of other financial channels are really trying to get across is to change this mindset. Yes, we could call it a boomer mindset. You could say that, but I think it's more just of a general public mindset, the general miseducation of a lot of us in the West about personal finance and how to handle money and how money actually works. And this kind of idea, this kind of almost sick idea that you just have to go out and just spend and spend and spend and get and get and get and consume and consume and consume. And there's nothing wrong with being a consumer. Again, it is how the economy works. But the other side of the economy that has been slowly degraded over time in Western culture, in particular, again, the United States, is the building part. Because if you're building things and creating things and producing things for people to consume, then yes, you're balancing it out. You're making money from your assets, and you're also able to spend money because you have discretionary income that you can go and spend and help the economy. When the United States as a country, as a government, and as a people have the mentality that debt is the way to go, we're just going to be in debt and debt and debt and debt, then the people that actually wind up having ownership of everything are the banks and are the ultra wealthy. They're taking advantage of that, and in some ways you could say they're taking advantage of you. And it's not the fault of the average person. When you start getting into personal finance, and I wasn't into it until a few years ago, but when you start understanding how money works and how the financial systems work, how interest works, and how all of these tools that exist are which are all basically based on math. I mean, finance is essentially math with some tools to help you multiply or divide your money and your finances. And once you understand how that game is operating, and once you can kind of get comfortable with not keeping up with the Joneses, not being house poor, not spending all of your money on things that you actually cannot afford, and you're having to borrow money from other people to be able to afford it, who then you have to pay more money for the thing that you bought because you got to pay it back to the people you borrowed it from, plus a lot of interest on it. Once you start seeing and understanding that that's the way things are running right now and have been running for the past several decades in the United States, you'll start to kind of go, that doesn't make any damn sense. And it will be good to cut back. It would be good to kind of minimize some of your expenditures. And at the very least, get yourself to a place where, yeah, you may have to have a mortgage and you may have to have a car loan, but that really should be it. Your credit card Debt shouldn't be anything that you can't pay off within a month or two at the very least. You really shouldn't be buying new things when you're already massively in debt, because again, that is how the poor stay poor. Interest rates will keep you playing catch up, while interest rates will allow other people to get further and further ahead. And with the new rise in interest rates, which we will be talking about some of the effects of those on our next video here on Wrestling Finance, it might be a good time to really start paying attention to that stuff and doing your research and finding out how rising interest rates can affect you as the average person just trying to get your finances in order. But that's just my personal opinion. I want you guys to, of course, do your own research. So definitely, again, check out some of that stuff. I will have some links down in the description box for you about some fundamentals. And of course, you can always check that out if you want to get started on your financial journey with Robinhood or Webull or Coinbase for crypto, or you want to store it in Vault and gather high interest rates. That's one way you can take advantage of interest rates, by getting 12% return interest by having a Vault account where your crypto is stored. You can do all of that by using some of the links down in the description box below. Thank you guys for checking out this video. Hopefully you're having a wonderful day, and I will see you guys next time here on Wrestling with Finance. Be safe.